Hey everybody, Brian Hunt here for another episode of the Gear Garage. And in this episode, we are taking a look at the Sigma Art Series cinema lenses. Okay everybody, full disclosure here. I have been working on a project with Sigma Canada, one of their Artisan Series videos, shooting a profile on an artist, Dennis Lin, and that was commissioned by Sigma Canada. And that was a way for me to test out these E-mount cinema lenses, their Art Series lenses. So I'm not being paid to do this review, but I was paid to do that other video. The other video, we have a link to that in the description. But what I'm talking to you guys about today is these cinema lenses. So what I have in front of me right now is 6 of these lenses. I actually have a 7 lens kit that I got on loaner from Sigma Canada, and the 7th lens is actually on my camera on my FS7 right now recording this. These are beautiful, beautiful lenses. I really wanted to try out these lenses. Having them E-mount so I could fit them right onto my Sony cameras is a great thing, not having to use an adapter to fit these on. And if you guys aren't too familiar with cinema glass over stills glass, over regular lenses, I'm gonna give you just a quick description and tell you what is different about it. So this is a 35mm lens. And one of the things you can see right off the bat is that the flanges, the sizing of the stuff is quite a bit bigger. So optically, this is exactly the same optics as the Sigma 35mm Art Series, whether that's the E-mount stills lens or the Canon stills lens, the EF mount. It's the exact, or it's the Nikon mount. They're the exact same optics. Okay, what's different on these is the housing and the readout for the back of them, for the amount of light coming out of the back of them. So one of the things, they're all going to have the same size of front here. And what this really helps with is when you're changing a matte box and doing stuff that way, it's always going to be the same size. So you don't have to worry about putting a spacer in there to fit onto your matte box. They're always just going to slide on easily. So when you're changing lenses, it's going to make that very easy. Another big difference on these lenses on cinema glass is that you have a declicked and a manual aperture. Okay, and then you have focus gears on your focus ring and on your aperture ring. These lenses are all manual. You will get a readout with Sony cameras. When they're attached to your camera, it will tell you what your f-stop is because it has the information on the back here that it can deliver that to your camera. But you can't actually change your f-stop from within the camera. And you can't, obviously these are prime lenses, so you can't change your focal length from inside the camera either. In short, they're a much more critical way of getting focus. You have a throw, so with a throw being the amount of space it takes to go from infinity to its minimal focus distance. And it's a much longer way to turn. And what this really helps with is pulling focus on a video shoot, on a film shoot. So what you have here is marks on here that are going to tell you where the distance is for your focal length. This helps a lot, again, with pulling focus to see, you can actually measure out, and then you can put to your focus marks here. And then your aperture is now given to you in a reading of a T-stop, not in an f-stop that you would do on a stills lens. I have a link in the description to some other videos that are speaking more in depth to the differences between a f-stop and a T-stop, but very quickly, the difference between them is an f-stop is the reading of the amount of light that can come in to the lens. It's a calculation from the size of the aperture to the length of the lens itself. But a T-stop is the amount of light coming out the back of the camera. So the measurement of light coming out the back of the camera. So one of the main reasons film and television will use T-stops over an f-stop is because a T-stop is a more critical thing of telling you exactly the same light coming out of the back of the lens. So say I had all these lenses set to T2 aperture, and I was to switch lenses during a scene. So I take off my 35mm and I put on my 14mm, or I put on my 85mm. My exposure, if I have them all at the same T-stop, will be exactly the same. There'll be no shifts in the amount of light coming onto the sensor of the camera. This might be something that's confusing to you because you might be thinking, well, if I'm taking an f-stop and it's the same f-stop across the board, that should be the same, but it's not, because f-stop isn't measured the same way. So you might have noticed this before when you're shooting something at a f2.8 on one lens, and then you shift to another lens, another focal length, maybe it's a prime lens, and you put it also at f2.8, that your exposure might look a little bit less underexposed or a little bit more overexposed than the previous lens. And that's because stills glass is not built with that in mind. Cinema glass is, and this is the thing just to speed up on the film set. And also it was a huge deal back when you were dealing with film stock and you weren't actually looking at an exact readout of what you were looking on digital cameras like you do now. Makes things quicker to make sure your exposures are all the same. Another big deal on these cinema glass, these Sigma cinema glass, is that the color representation across all their lenses, all 7 of their lenses, is extremely good and equivalent and equal across all the lenses. So you're not getting any shifts in color. You can get that on different lenses. You can get that on different cinema glass sometimes as well from different manufacturers. These lenses are great. I really, really loved working with these lenses. They were amazing lenses to work with. The glass was beautiful. We captured some amazing images, as you can see here with it. One of my favorite lenses was the 14mm lens, getting a nice wide lens with a great kind of f-stop on it, with a great fast t-stop on it. Probably one of the fastest t-stops you can get as that wide of a lens. You know, the 135. It was beautiful on a bunch of different shots I got when we were doing welding to get that bokeh of some of the sparks shooting towards the lens, but staying far enough back that I didn't need to worry about any of those things hitting the actual element of the glass. Kind of a workhorse, one that a lens that I like to shoot on quite a bit is a 35mm. It's not too wide, and I can still get in there and get a lot of close focus on things. So for me, I was also using these with a follow focus, which really helps to having these hard stops of where you're going on your focus. And then for using these with my remote follow focus system, with my Tilta Nucleus Max follow focus system, you can have one motor set up onto your aperture if you want, and one motor set up onto your focus. And again, it's just easy to set up, much better than doing that with a stills glass where you don't have these hard stops here on each end. Now, with all this stuff said, do I think I'm going to be investing into a set of these lenses? And right now, probably not. For a lot of the work that I do, it's more documentary style branded content. The price difference over the Sigma Art Series stills lenses to these isn't really worth it for me. These kind of slow me down a little bit because of how big they are, how heavy they are. If I'm traveling into a location, if I'm hiking into a location, you know, it's a big case. I have the case right now that these actually just 5 of these lenses go into. There's another smaller case where 2 more of the lenses go into. So really this can be heavier than my whole kit when I'm going into a location shooting. But I am going to be investing into some more of the Sigma Art Series stills glass. I'll be getting them on an EF mount, on a Canon mount. The reason I'll be getting them on a Canon mount is so I can use an adapter. It's a bit more versatile for me. So if I want to use them on a Canon camera, if I want to use them on a C200 or a C300, I can do that. If I want to use my Metabones and use them on my FS7, I can do that, or I can use it on my A7 III. I can also use my Metabones and use it on my GH5. So having an EF mount, Canon mount, is much more versatile for me. And if I want to use them for stills for glass and having that autofocus function, that's more versatile for me as well. Plus, it's the exact same optics between the two, so I'm not going to get any better looking optics. It just can be sometimes a little bit easier to work with, even though I loved having an E-mount where I can just throw that straight onto the Sony camera and not have to worry about an adapter. Sometimes you get a bit of play when you have adapters in there, and that can cause some issues when you're using a follow focus system or a remote follow focus system. The actual lens is kind of shifting a bit there with the adapter. So I did love the fact that these are actually all native E-mounts and you can put them straight onto the camera. But again, I'm probably just going to be holding off on these. These would be a rental item for me when I look at using them. But if you are somebody looking for a set of cinema glass, I would highly recommend renting these lenses, trying them out, taking a look at them. I do like these quite a bit. I really love the 14 millimeter. I love the 135, the 85. I loved all of them. I used every single one of these lenses. 14, 20, 24, 35, 50, 85, and 135 on the video that I did for Sigma Canada. So they all came into play. They all work great. Yes, if you're looking at investing into a lens kit, they're a very affordable in the world of cinema lenses. Over stills lenses, they're way more expensive, but they're a different set of lenses for that. So this has kind of been my input, what I thought about these Sigma E-mount Art Series cinema lenses. So if you guys can leave some comments below, let me know what you think about these Sigma Art Series cinema lenses. If you've used their other Art Series lenses, what your thoughts are on those. Let's have a bit of a discussion going here. This is the way we can help and grow and learn different things. It's discussions below in the comment section. And thanks so much, guys, for watching this video. If you liked the video, please give us a like. Please think of putting the notifications on and subscribing to the channel, and we'll see you on the next Gear Garage.